And is it Lawlace or Lawless?
Lawlace.
Lawlace.
Yeah,
Perfect.
either Lovelace, Lawlace. Yeah, otherwise we don't want to sound lawless.
Yeah, for sure.
Although it might be like, spicy, but
Yeah, no,
the
Lawlace.
opposite is the goal.
I'm going to ask you about that question as well. Why Lawlace? And it's
Yes.
fantastic to have your journey on the record. And I'm so happy that we're doing this finally with you flying in from San Francisco. And with that, I want to welcome you back to the Corpora Podcast, where I sit down with leading professionals and thinkers to talk all things startup law, entrepreneurship, and technology. Corpora helps startups close fundraising rounds faster by being investment ready always. And we do that by creating a single source of truth for all your legal documents, giving you a heads up in case you have red flags in them, and help you plug in those gaps. Corpora.us, check it out. It's free to sign up. My name is Stepan Khazaritsyan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Corpora. And I'm thrilled to announce our special guest for today, a great startup lawyer, an extremely creative one as well, Kristina Subbotina, who just flew in from San Francisco, landed in LAX about an hour ago, and now we have her on the show today. Kristina, it's so great meeting you in person.
Thank you, Stefan. Really appreciate it. I'm so excited. We already had our first conversation via Zoom, and it was obvious that it's not enough, and we really want to meet.
For sure.
Thank you.
For sure. Thank you as well. And I want to read out your very impressive bio for our audience. For over 7 years, Kristina has worked as a corporate lawyer, including roles at Cooley and 2 venture-backed startups. She has represented some of the world's most innovative startups and top-tier venture funds, covering everything from formation and financing to compliance, day-to-day operations, and exits. She is admitted to practice law in California and New York. Besides being a corporate lawyer, Kristina also invests in health tech startups and shares legal and wellness tips for founders on social media. Her legal experience gives her a unique skill set and deep understanding of the startup world, which she uses to help drive success for forward-thinking companies. When she's not advising startups and investors or creating content, which we'll talk about today, Kristina enjoys yoga, meditation, dancing, and reading. Her favorite books are The Power of Now and Dune. And as to Dune, that makes the two of us, Kristina.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
How was your flight?
Flight was good. I was flying with my dog, and he was like calmer than the pilot. Super chill. Yeah. Honestly, the whole day started from sunrise, which was beautiful, which compensated for the lack of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone from like Uber drivers to flight attendants were incredible. And I think it really starts with the mindset. I woke up feeling that I didn't have enough sleep, but I decided I'm going to have a great day, and then you attract like-minded experiences and people. So it's been great.
Fantastic. And it's great to have Ginger in the studio with us today. And a special shout out to Ginger, who's in the room and following along as well. Maybe we'll have a question for him as well.
Yes. Many people want to live Ginger's life and spend time with him. Yeah, but it's cool that, before he was making sounds, but now he's like, this is the work time. I need to like focus.
Amazing. Kristina, in prep for this podcast, I was looking at your LinkedIn, your Substack, your TikTok, Lawlace's website, your own podcast, Startup Mindset, and it has startups and startup law written all over it. What is so cool? What is this obsession with startups and startup law? Why is it so cool? What drives you towards this industry, if I may?
To be honest with you, I think startup, it's the mindset. It's not necessarily a company. And it's that mindset, growth mindset, when you start your hero's journey and you figure out as you go. Most of the founders, like unicorn founders, they are immigrants. And if we count the kids of immigrants, excuse me, it's 2/3 of unicorn founders are immigrants. And I'm an immigrant. So my whole life here in the US, that's a startup. Coming here without knowing a single person, language barrier. I was studying English and law in parallel. Just not knowing what to do, having visa issues, all of those things I can relate to founders so much, because you just sit with yourself and you decide to figure out. You have no idea how. And that hustle mentality, curiosity, drive, energy, and the mindset that you can figure out, that's what attracts me to founders, because I am just like them.
Mm-hmm. Talking about journeys, there's this one particular career trajectory that I'm seeing more and more of recently. And it's the associate who's been working at a big law firm specialized in the ECVC space. For our audience, ECVC means emerging companies, venture capital, companies such as Cooley, Fenwick, Wilson Sonsini, Gunderson Detmer, Goodwin, Oryx, and Lee Austin. And they work there for a couple of years, maybe 3, maybe 4, and they branch out and set up beautiful practices, boutique law firms, specializing in startup law, helping startups. And this is a great proposition because now you have, just like you mentioned in your TikTok videos, now you have nobody's taking your skills and knowledge and expertise away from you. You're still the same associate, the same lawyer, but now you're delivering excellent quality at more competitive rates. For those in our audience that might be contemplating a similar journey, who are with the big law firms today and considering maybe branching off and channeling their entrepreneurial spirit, what would be your tips based on your experience? Because you did the same. You worked at Cooley for a couple of years and then you set up Lawlace.
Yeah, exactly. And so even before Cooley, I worked at 2 venture-backed startups as an associate general counsel. So I've seen the full life cycle working in 2 startups, 2 venture-backed startups, working at a law firm representing startups, and then working with VC funds with helping them form and invest in startups. So I understand that life cycle, and that would be the main advice if you're working at a big law firm. Try to identify who would be your clients and try to become an expert in that. So, for example, with ECVC, if you're representing startups, but also you do M&A, IPOs, like do that for some exposure, but focus on startups because you're not likely as a boutique firm to attract IPOs as clients, right? They will be most likely doing that at a big law firm because at that time there is so much at stake. It makes more sense to spend $1 million for Cooley. Similar with big M&As. If you are consistently working a capital markets practice, it might be challenging to branch off because big clients, they would still prefer big law firms for various reasons. So make sure you spend enough time doing startup work, ECVC, pure ECVC work. So, and based on that, develop relationships with clients. So when I left Cooley, and I didn't solicit anyone, and the reason why I started Lawlace is because clients started coming to me like, can you take me? I'm like, no, go back. I even don't want to be a lawyer at that time. I thought I'm going to be just venture investor. But because there is this product market fit, it's good price, good quality, and big law is an overkill for startups, for early stage startups, objectively. Those clients might just come after you. I was chased by 2 clients. They're like, we really want to work with you. And now it's 2 startups. For example, for this startup who was my client at Cooley, I'm doing acquisition. It's a small acquisition. If they were having huge M&A, probably they would stay with Cooley, but because it's a small acquisition, it makes sense money-wise to do it with me. So focus on becoming an expert, doing ECVC work, building the relationships. And you never know, who would remember you. A week ago when I was in New York, so while at Cooley, I did M&A deal, and I was like the most junior, so I didn't do M&A deal. I was just like the junior associate, like doing due diligence. But that founder who had an exit, he remembered me, and for 2 years he has been following me on social media. I had no idea. It's not like he was liking my posts, but after 2 years, he's like, hey, I remembered you from the deal. I had an exit. I have money. I'm investing. I'm angel investing. And I want your help with my investments. And I want your help with my portfolio companies because they frequently do not have good legal counsel and big law is expensive. I was like, wow. It's just, I was not trying to build the relationship with him when I was doing the deal, but just being there, doing your best, and being, diligent and positive, like your attitude on those deals. That's what shines through on those Zoom calls when everyone is stressed, when you just light up the the energy, people tend to remember you. So doing the good job and just being positive, smiling, even if you have nothing to say, you smile, you get remembered and they come to you. And the third one is if you're working at BigLaw currently, and actually, so after I posted on TikTok that I'm leaving Cooley, like in 2 weeks, and this is what I'm gonna do, some of the associates reached out to me. It was like senior associates, mid-level, and junior associates. And there's one associate whom I really like, and he's like, I really want to do it, but at that time he had only 1 year at Cooley. I was like, my honest advice would be to stick with Cooley for longer, because with every year you become more valuable. So, and the important part is not to stay for too long if you want. Then it makes sense to become a partner, and it's going to be a different ball game. But if you want to leave, as you mentioned, it's like 2-4 years, I would say, because later it's hard to leave. A lot of money on the table. You're already good at it. You kind of got used to the grind, to not having life, and it's hard to find something that would pay you as much as like BigLaw. So stick it up, form the relationship, become the expert, and leave until it's too late, until there are golden handcuffs.
The right time. Kristina, I appreciate you talking about this vocally, because this is information that people should hear. It's a very daunting thing, right? Working at an excellent law firm, having put in the years in law school, the bar exam, and the long hours at work. It's daunting to make that leap, but the fact that there are people doing it and talking about it now shows that there is a way to be done. And I fully relate to this as well as myself. I haven't worked at a big law firm. I went straight into private practice, my own practice right out of law school. But I did make a big leap myself recently by going from being a lawyer to legal tech. And the more we talk about these leaps, the more we talk about being very thoughtful about this, having mentors along the way, talking with your peers, talking with your advisors, the more we can, if I may, liberate the industry or democratize access to startup law. Because one thing you mentioned that I want to double click on, unbundling legal services, right? So maybe 20 years ago, you had the law firm taking care of everything for the company. But as we go about, especially with the advent of technologies, including AI, you have customers being more savvy about who they trust with their legal needs. And so if it's the very bespoke, very high-stakes strategic work, you definitely want to have that top-class, multinational, international law firm at your back as you navigate that big M&A or the IPO. But for the earlier deals, the micro acquisitions, or the small acquisitions rather, the earlier financing, seed, Series A, maybe Series B, that can be unbundled. That part can be trusted to a great lawyer who has had the exposure to the big law, or people who work at big law, and can navigate that as well. And we're seeing clients become more savvy in that sense.
That is very true. And the clients are savvy, but also in-house counsel. I know I was in-house counsel, and I know a lot of in-house counsel in those rocket ships, billion-dollar companies, and they don't want, once they come in, they're like, I don't want Fenwick doing all of my work. I don't want to pay this money. I want, for trademarks, I'm going to have this amazing boutique law firm. For this work, I'm going to have these people. And even me. So I actually collaborate with Cooley, with Oric. So for example, my mentor at Cooley, like we agreed that we can partner when I serve as a fractional general counsel. They can be my outside legal counsel. Another startup that came from Cooley to me, and we still hired Oric because of the conflict. We couldn't go with Cooley. We hired Oric for those specific things that I know it would be better to go with them. For example, we had a founder divorce, and I know in order to protect company's IP, it looks so much better when there is a cease and desist letter coming from big law firm than from Kristina. So I do all of the work, but when I'm like, okay, this issue, let's let them handle. That's strategic. We're strategically using BigLaw when it's needed, and we don't when it's not needed.
Yeah, no, that's a winning. That's a win-win. So, from one perspective, the same big law firms that have curated and incubated this next generation of lawyers are actually winning as well from this proliferation of the new law industry, if we may call it, in opposition to the big law industry.
Because the truth is that big law doesn't make money doesn't make a lot of money on early stage work. It's not that profitable, but you have to do it to generate the clients grow up and graduate to M&As and IPOs. You don't pick up a client at M&A and IPO. You pick them up when they're little, early stage. That's why BigLaw has to deal with those founders and early stage startups to be able to make millions on those transactions. But if they didn't have to do it, they would prefer not to.
It's a loss leader. It's a source of cost for these companies.
It's a source of cost, and the partners that I've observed, like ECVC partners, it's hard, honestly, because you have 100, like a couple of 100 clients, those little that you always have to work with for not that much money, and it's draining. That is a lot of work for not a lot of money for big law firm. So
Kristina, let's talk about Lawlace. It's music to my ears that you're presenting Lawlace as the AI powered law firm. Tell our audience more about this. What is Lawlace? What's special about it? What does it mean to be an AI powered law firm, and why Lawlace?
Yes, first Lawlace, that was idea of my law clerk, James. We both graduated from USC, so when I was ready to hire, I wanted to hire a summer intern. I reached out to my law school, USC Gould School of Law, Los Angeles, and they recommended him. And we're just having a conversation. What would it be called? I didn't want to do like Subbotina Law Group or something like this, Soviet Union like names. And we initially wanted to call it Lawlace, named after Ada Lovelace, the first computer programmer. And
so we had a fun interaction with Ginger, and now we're back to the show.
Back at it, yes. Okay, so we came up with the name. Lawlace is named after Ada Lovelace, the first computer programmer, and she's a woman, which is incredible. And because the law firm is founded by a woman, and we wanted to attribute, to women in tech. And we came up with a name. And in terms of being AI powered, it came from, honestly, struggle. So my law clerk was making the same mistakes. And because I use ChatGPT and I use AI every day, and I remember getting frustrated. I'm like, if that was AI, it would not make the same mistake as I already explained that. And then I was like, if I'm teaching someone already, why can't I teach AI? Because law clerk will leave you eventually. Like associates leave BigLaw, and you train them, they go and start their own law firms, which is totally fine. But it would be nice to actually have that. So we started building startup launch package, document generator with AI. So potentially it could be used by even a client directly, and then they just pay for like a 30-minute review of the documents at the end, and just overall to streamline internally work. Because one thing that before Cooley, I also worked for a boutique law firm, and I realized that I don't want to be in the business of, just growing the number of people and managing the people. I want to use technology, and I'm lazy, and I'm not interested in doing the same thing over and over again. I always think, how can I write an instruction so I don't need to do it again? And I actually did that at Cooley as well. I would utilize my assistant, paralegals. I would literally write checklist. This is the due diligence checklist, and I would send it to other associates, so I don't need to repeat myself. And while I'm, doing other deals, I would I would add new things to the checklist, and ideally, that's how I progress to other things. And now I need to do business development, content, and I do want to have time to invest in startups. So writing instructions and then using those instructions to build the model to do the work. It is honestly hard. I use ChatGPT every day, and there are certain limitations like the word limits, then obviously confidentiality, privacy, and all of those things. But still, it is helpful. So we're hoping to use it and to build. And my goal for the next year is to hire a software engineer full time, because right now I do have people who help, but it's more like we're thinking about building a startup in parallel with the law firm, but I actually want to have a software engineer to build those tools that, startup launch package, proofreading of the documents. And I use a lot of software, like for example, project management tools. I use Trello. Like every client and every project is a card with the checklists. I use AI note taker, and all of those things are imperfect. I actually truly would love to build things that I would want to use. And one of the ideas that hypothesis that I want to test, whether it is better to build your own thing and eat the market versus selling to lawyers. And after talking to some of my friends, like Justin Ken, he built Atrium, and learning from his lessons, from his failure, selling to lawyers, it sounds like the worst business model. It's really hard. So I'm testing the hypothesis of doing the law firm, building the software yourself. And then once you identify certain things that could be utilized one too many, then we scale and go full force. And in terms of like BigLaw market is super interesting. I'm actually having many conversations about that with the top partners of those big law firms. There is interest, definitely, but I honestly see that incentives are not aligned, because you're billing per hour. You're not incentivized to bill. You're not incentivized to be efficient, honestly. So they're interested in that in terms of survival. So if they have to do it, there is no other way, meaning if someone succeeds and they would be losing the clients, only then they actually would do it. But until then, I don't think they will be the driving force until the adoption happens. And in order for adoption happens, people like you should be building it.
Yeah. And I want to shift gears, Kristina, back to startups. Startups are incredibly frugal, right? And naturally so. You have limited resources, that being time, cash, people. You have a lot of competition out there, the bigger players, and so you want to be hyper efficient. And you were talking about this in one of your TikTok videos of how founders should think about law. And I want you to expound about that for our audience today. How you're a CEO, you have a line item saying legal, and it's a nag for you because you care about product market fit more. That's the make or break. How should founders think about law?
That's a really, really good thing. Let me put him down so he's not.
Sure.
Okay. Chill, Ginger. Okay. Yes. Tired. So how startup founders should think about that? Okay. I would say a couple of things. If you're an early stage founder, I honestly think the best way is to hire someone who worked at the top law firm specializing in representing startups. Cooley, Wilson Sonsini, Gunderson, Fenwick, maybe, like those top law firms. I think that would be the best value you would get, because those associates, they were doing ECVC work day in and day out. So it just reps. They will be able to provide a lot of value for you, and they've seen and they've seen enough. So you don't necessarily need to have a partner level to help you, because these associates would know what are the things you cannot mess up. For example, like 83B election that you built recently. So you cannot mess that up. Like QSBS, you cannot mess that up. Issuance of equity, vesting, you have to get it right. Many things, they are not as consequential as those. So overpaying for those things for getting 100% might not make sense, because you want to spend that money on product market fit, hiring people. That would make or break your startup. With legal, you need to get 100% right, the most important parts. And I don't know, maybe 80, 90%, those things that are less important or can be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, even with me reviewing the document, I can review it 2 times, I can review it 5 times. When I'm at BigLaw, I will review it 5 times because why not? And that's, there's a lot of pressure, reputation. We can, build the client for that work. Now I am very aware. Like, for example, this acquisition that I'm doing, I know the goals the founder has. I know that getting 100% right is really, really not important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more important to save money. So I adapt.
Mm-hmm.
As with BigLaw, it's hard because everything coming out from big law firm, it is liability for them. It has to be perfect. So that's why for founders, I think
That's fine.
That's why for founders, I think going with ex-BigLaw associates, that's the best, in my opinion, the best value. And I personally, because I started hiring, I quickly realized that I'm going to hire ex-BigLaw that I know associates. I already have my goal for the next year. I'm praying to hit certain revenue. And my Cooley mentor, he gave me the range that he's like, you can definitely hit that. And it's it's double or triple of my salary at Cooley. So the first year, actually, as a BigLaw associate, you can easily make the salary that you made at BigLaw. That's the thing that actually was not obvious for me. And that's what part that I was scared. But you can make the same salary, but it's going to be much more, because if you work for yourself, you can deduct many things. And as a salary, you pay 50% in taxes, so you don't actually make that much money. So that's one thing that I wanted to share it out there. And some of my friends who also started their law firms after leaving BigLaw, for them it also was like a wow. You can, and you work generally less than at BigLaw. So yeah, it was like a detour, but I think it's an important one.
Absolutely.
So for startup founders, I think that would be the best avenue.
And I want to highlight a point you made earlier in terms of how founders should think about law. It sounds like we're drawing a line between the parts where you don't want to mess up because it's consequential. You want to make sure you get those right. And with everything else, maybe good enough is good enough. Maybe you can let a few balls drop. They're not going to break. They're plastic, not glass. We'll come back to them when we do have the money and we do have the resources to actually pay a lawyer to correct those. But the 83B election, the giving of stock options without a foreign or with a foreign NA to make sure you get it right, and all those, they are consequential and they are irreversible. You want to make sure you get those right. The rest is good enough. Reminds me of Maslow's pyramid, where, when you're in survival mode, you want to have the air and the water and the sunshine and not really think about the social interactions or the self-realization, which can come about in the later stages.
Yeah. And that's true, but the tricky part is knowing where to draw the line. And I think that comes from experience. That's why I'm saying BigLaw, because even if you go to a lawyer that you think is good, but if you don't know, you always have to check, with other founders, with other investors, do this cross-checking, because just because the person is a lawyer doesn't mean they know. And I've seen those, now I represent a lot of investors and I do due diligence, and I'm like, what the hell has happened?
Yeah.
This data room, I'm currently doing this due diligence, and the founder's data room is ready. I open and there's not a single legal document. There's marketing about the company. I'm like, where are the documents? Everything is there. I'm like there's nothing there. And when I started digging, I'm like, okay, I need all of this. Half of that just doesn't exist, and the other half is just a hot mess. And I was like, did you have a lawyer? And surprisingly, he did. And it's a law firm, and the person is the head of ECVC practice. I'm like, what happened there? How could it be? This guy paid money, but it's just ridiculously bad. The person didn't have any idea what needs to be done. And so there is the danger with that. You could be paying money, but to the wrong people. and they don't know. When it comes to investor due diligence, I let the general partner know, I'm like, we can't invest in this mess. They have to clean it up. And then, the founder stock wasn't issued properly. It's really hard to clean that up. Exactly, Ginger. Really hard. Really hard to clean that up. And really expensive. And some of the things, they might not be even cleaned properly. Because if you already raised money, like in that, with this founder situation, it is hard. You can't just date back the documents.
Oh no.
So, yeah. And one more thing even with BigLaw, don't assume once you got to BigLaw, that's it, you're safe. Actually, no. Especially with ECVC, you get, honestly, an associate. You don't really get a partner, to be honest with you. And you frequently would get a junior associate because it's ECVC, because the, money, the way it makes sense in terms of billing. And so make sure the associate is good. More than 80% of the work will be done by an associate.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that the associate is good, that you're not wasting your money.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, ECVC sounds like a rock band, right? ACDC. That just came to mind. But one of the main problems that I've seen my former clients do before they hired me, and not just my clients, but generally, one of the top 5 mistakes, one of them was working with the wrong lawyer. Just because they have corporate lawyer in their title, just because they have startup lawyer in the title, does not mean that they are qualified to do financings. You mentioned data rooms, Kristina. That's very near and dear to my heart. That's very near and dear to what we're doing at Corpora. And I want you to share with our audience today what they should put in their data room as they prepare, especially for a price round.
Yeah, that is a good thing, because I've seen so many messed up data rooms. Oh, founders like data room, what is that? I'm like, oh. So I started offering that in my startup launch package. When I start the startup, I already create the data room with the folders on the drive. And I'm like, okay, this is how you organize it. I'm going to put all of the documents that we created for you, and then we will be adding. So whenever investor is ready to invest, you are ready for due diligence. You don't have to, go and see what is happening. And that's actually the reason why I started sharing my knowledge very openly. Like, I recently published a Substack blog post, and I honestly spilled the tea. That's the checklist I used when I was at Cooley representing top tier VC funds. Everything that I check, maybe not everything, but 80% is there of things. So I do recommend you check it out, guys, because that's how you know whether it's there or not. That's how you know you can check your lawyer, whether they know what it is. But the things that should be in data room, first is incorporation. And there are a couple of things that you should be thinking, like, was the company properly formed, usually in Delaware, as a C corporation? If it's an LLC, we will have a conversation whether we will push you to convert to a C Corp. Most likely we will, unless you're someone like hot that we want in, and, it's okay that it's an LLC. It's very rare. Then the founder stock, has it been issued properly? Directors appointed, officers elected. The founder stock is subject to vesting. 83B election has been filed, and the stamped copy of that from the IRS is in there. If the founder stock is subject to vesting, but it's almost run out, maybe we will put it on a revesting schedule. The bylaws, that there are transfer restrictions on common stock. So these are the incorporation things that we will check. And then we will go into capital stock. So what kind of stock agreements, it's common stock, maybe preferred stock, safes, convertible notes, warrant stock options, everything that has been issued. So your cap table has to be clean. So that's one of those things you can't mess up. It's your cap table, because it's really hard to fix those things. So you need to have a folder with all of those agreements, and they have to match to the cap table. That's why I recommend using cap table management tools. I don't know. I usually use Carta. There's Pulley. And I would honestly have your lawyer do it, because even at Cooley, for example, there would be 2 people reviewing, and I swear there will be mistakes.
Mhm.
So that's why, like, if, for example, if I did the cap table, I would want my paralegal to go and just have a second set of eyes. Maybe I missed something. It's really easy to mess it up.
Mhm.
So cap table, matching with all of the agreements. Then the third would be all of the board and stockholder consents and actions.
Mhm.
And you have to know that, for example, you have a safe financing. It's just not enough to upload the YC form. You have to have a board consent approving the form that you're using, how much you're
Mhm.
raising. So all of the agreements that you have, equity agreements, all of the notes, they have to map up to the consents, the
Mhm.
board stockholder consents. For example, equity incentive plan. It's just not enough to just have the plan. There should be stockholders approving it, the board approving how much shares you allocate to the plan. Then filings that you need to make. For example, in California, it's 25102O for
Mhm.
the plan and F filings. So those things you also want to upload in the folder called Securities Laws Compliance, for like Form D, Blue Sky, for all of the raises that you've made. Then the next folder would be intellectual property. That's something that, that's the whole thing. The founders, the team, and the actual assets. And especially what we care about is that all of the IP has been assigned by the founders without exclusions, exceptions, and by all of the employees and consultants. So I would want to make sure that everything was assigned. Then trademarks. Is it alive? Have you had rejection? What are you going to do about that? I want to have a list of all of the IP, and I will go and actually check to make sure that we have the IP lined up with our plans for the business. Then employees consultants folder, where I mentioned I want to see all of the agreements. They're all in place. The IP assignment is one of the most important parts, but I would also check maybe like salary compensation unusual, like exclusivity or something. And then there will be like other folders: regulatory compliance, litigation, debt, and other things like agreements. I will check all of the business agreements that you have, and financials, business plan, and other things. But the first, those incorporation, capital, stock, board, stockholder consents, IP, those 4 things that I would be drilling on.
And it's thank you for this meticulous overview, because we can't belabor this point enough of how important this is. And time again in my practice as well, I noticed clients coming, dumping years of paperwork into my inbox and expecting the closing to happen the exact same day. It just doesn't work that way.
Exactly.
And you and I know very well that time kills deals, and the amount of time that one might spend putting together a data room, perfect diligence, can push out the moment that you get the cash in your account for quite a while. And that's one of the reasons why we started what we started, Corpora, which is to automate that process. The data room is there, the document repository is there. All you have to do is bulk upload whatever you have, and everything will fit right where it belongs and give you the overview of, has IP been assigned? Has there been any service provider who did not assign their IP? Were there excluded inventions, just like you mentioned? Was a safe round approved by the board, and things like that, in order to bring that time frame, which can be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4, the cleanup and all, down to maybe moments, to make sure that is automated. Again, very crucial for startups. And thank you for talking about this with our audience through TikTok and through the podcast today. And I wanna come to content creation. You are like the OG startup law influencer, Kristina.
God.
I think I first found out about you through TikTok. I was
God.
looking into TikTok to see what animal this is, how this works, and then I did #startup law, and your videos came up, and you're excellent at this.
Thank you.
I forget what the acronyms were, but like the memes and all, creating content that is fun but also educational. And that begs the question, do founders care about this? Founders, they have PMF issues, product market fit issues, and marketing. Should they care about startup law, and do they care about startup law? What is the signal that you're getting through content creation?
Yeah, so content creation is super interesting. That was part of the reasons why I knew that I would leave Cooley, because I wanted to create content, and there was this high level, like the leadership discussion, whether they would allow me. And there was a break between the new generation and the old generation. And the answer was no, I was not allowed. But the idea of me creating content actually belongs to general partner of A16Z, my close friend Shuram Krishnan. He basically, because he watches my Instagram and he would, Ginger, I know. Life is hard of a chief crypto officer these days.
He can see the fluctuations in the market. So he's like, you gotta buy or sell right now.
Yes. So he basically was pushing me while I was at Cooley, and I'm like, I'm gonna get fired. Like I'm not allowed to do that. But when I left, he's like, you have to do it. And after like 5 or 6 times, like just nagging me, I was like, there is a reason why he's doing that. And he would like come up with specific ideas for my content. He would send me links, you should do this. And one of the things he said is like, in legal, there is a problem that founders don't know what they don't know until it's too late. And they wouldn't go to read my blog post because it's like boring. Unless there is an investor who is not investing money and they're like, why? Like there is a problem. Mm-hmm. But once there is a problem, it's kind of too late. So the idea that we have is that I create dumb, funny videos that make them have this moment, oh shit, I actually like, she's making fun of me. And like, for example, I would like make something, you're solo founder not issuing stock. And it would be like, oh, how stupid is that? And then the solo founders, I'm like, and so I have clients who came straight from TikTok, and what they said, they like before going to bed, they would scroll and they would binge my TikTok videos. Then they would go to my Instagram where I have like more information. Then they would go to my blog posts. So once I got them that I have a problem like that, they're willing to spend more time outside of like 10 seconds. But that thing of doing something simple, funny, kind of like dumb, but it has the point, I think it's the most efficient way to attract attention of founders. And it's actually not as easy. It's easier to sound smart. And that's what I learned at Cooley. So partner, when I just joined, he's like, Kristina, the reason why you charge so much, not to sound smart, but to sound so simple that everyone can understand. That's why we charge more. I was like, wow. Finally, I don't have to sound complicated. I'm an immigrant, so English is not my first language. And actually, that's my strength. I speak in plain English. I don't overcomplicate anything. And it requires you to really know stuff, really drill down. So I think in content, if there are more lawyers doing simple explanations, straight to the point, with no water and bullshit, the more helpful for founders it would be. You give the free content, but you help them. Yeah. You build the relationship without actually being there. And the feedback that I got, that people would like follow me on Instagram, they would see just my life. And I'm also a founder. I'm just like them. That's how the personal connection happens. A couple of months ago, this guy, founder, he purchased my startup launch package without talking to me, straight from TikTok. He's like, I feel like I know you. I see you all live since the moment you wake up. Like, I know your dog. I know your friends. I know like everything about you. So like, what is it? Yeah. So content is super helpful. And I actually see some of the law firms like Goodwin, one of heads of ECVC group, because I had an offer from Goodwin when I was choosing between Goodwin and Cooley. And so that partner started doing these short videos on LinkedIn, which is super great. And he gives so much value. They're more complex, but like so much value and short. I'm like, okay, this is the big law firms. They're also doing that. And it's amazing. That's
very important, because a meme, a short 15-second video, that can actually save the startup a ton of headache down the line. I relate to that as well. Kristina has a special place for me as well. I used to run this thing called Cafe O Law. I invited people to my home. I made coffee for them, espresso-based drinks, and they would ask me their startup law questions. And the tagline was, "A cup of coffee can save your startup." And I want really to stress that founders should be following a creator like you on TikTok, Instagram, your Substack in order to get that knowledge, because that the scroll, just like you mentioned before, going to sleep for a minute or two can mean the difference between making or breaking on a critical law topic. Thank you so much for coming here straight out of LAX this morning.
Yes.
Really appreciated talking with you this morning.
Thank you so much, Stefan. I'm also really happy to be here. Thank you for building in legal tech. We need more builders. There are literally not enough, and especially builders who have legal expertise. That's very, very rare. Now, legal tech is hot, and I see a lot of software engineers coming without legal education, which I encourage, honestly, like, please come. But you are very unique because you have both your builder, entrepreneurial mindset, and you're a lawyer. So you know what you're building. You know the product. And you can sell it to lawyers because you know what lawyers need and you know what clients need because you're close to them. So you're just in a perfect position to succeed. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much for saying this. It means a lot, and it has to be a coalition effort for us working together to make this.
I actually agree. I think legal tech because I'm always putting the investor hat. I'm kind of hesitant to invest in legal tech because the market might be too small. God knows what's going to happen. There are no successes except for a couple of like Ironclad, like those companies. And it's like, would it be successful? But we make it successful if we grow the pie together. That's why I think competition, I don't believe in that. It's about collaboration, making pie bigger and bouncing ideas off each other. So that's why I drove 1 hour from LAX to here, because I want to, support, collaborate, and together we can make practicing law more enjoyable.
For sure.
And cheaper democratize it for people.
More affordable, more accessible. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today was Kristina Subbotina.
And Gingerman.
and Ginger as well, of course.
The noise, I hope you heard, that's the pain of the founders they feel.
The Chief Crypto Officer of Lawlace. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Ginger.